Welcome to the Wild West. This is the War Pony podcast where we are your trading post for all upcoming productions, connections, and tricks of the trade. I'm your host, Cassidy Honey, bringing West Texas to you. I'm a wife, mom, businesswoman, holistic equine therapist, and team roper. Relax and watch the sunset as we highlight events, consult on business, share knowledge of the industry, and talk to the legends and rising stars of the community. Join the tribe and make War Pony your one-stop shop for all things West Texas. Well, welcome to the War Pony podcast. I'm your host, Cassidy Honey, and today we have Sydni Blanchard with us. Sydni just did a clinic here at the 3-Bar Arena, so we were able to steal her and bring her on the podcast.
Yes. Hi, everybody.
So for those who don't know, Sydni has both been to the NFR, and she is really successful in the futurity world. So
I actually don't futurity.
Oh, you don't?
No.
Okay, can you cut that? I thought you did.
No, not really. I train horses, but basically what I do now is I train horses and season them. And then once they're finished, I get a little bored. And so I want them to go on to the next person that is, make their dreams come true. And, but a lot of times I'll have a horse. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to ever sell this one. But it always comes around where I'm like, okay, I have nothing else to work on, and they're seasoned and they've
And where are you living right now?
Pueblo, Colorado, which is great because our circuit is the Mountain State Circuit where we have, I feel like the season's best rodeos. We have Cheyenne, we have Cody, Wyoming, Casper, Sheridan.
All the pretty places.
Well, we just have great rodeos.
Yeah.
So it still feels like, I get to do both. I get to stay home and train and be with my family. And then I also
Do you ever plan on hauling back for the NFR?
I don't.
No?
No, but I'm doing so much now. So Group W Productions has hired me to do the Ride Fearless show in Vegas. So I have a talk show there all 10 days. And this year is going to be really cool because the Yellowstone cast created a movie called Ride. And I'm the host for the premiere of it. And that'll be the first 2 days of the NFR at 1 o'clock at the Rio.
That's cool.
No, not at 1 o'clock at the Rio. It's at 11 o'clock at the Rio.
I don't even want to know what your biggest schedule looks like. So,
and then I'm telling you right now, though. So then after that it is 1 o'clock at the Rio, and that's my schedule.
Yeah.
So, and then we might be doing some Cowboy Channel late night rodeo stuff too there, but we don't have all the details for that yet.
And I saw on your Facebook you were kind of looking for some girls to be on your Ride Fearless, or what was that?
Yeah, so for the show in Vegas, I interview as many of the current NFR qualifiers as possible. So the ones that have qualified this 2024 season. And so I have somebody that's qualified every day, but I like to do a segment that's called Raising Champions, which I feel like has a lot to do with the rodeo wives and being there for your husbands and getting them there. And then also the moms. And what's really cool about that segment, and you should do one for this podcast, because you get so much more out of the family versus if somebody's talking about themselves, they're not going to embarrass themselves.
Well, and also it's hard to sit there and just talk about yourself, right? Because you're like, hard. I don't want to sound a certain way. And then there's only so much you I don't know, but
I embarrass myself. I feel like I tried to embarrass myself right off the bat, and then it gets that fear out.
Then you're done. Yeah.
And then you're done.
Got it.
There's nothing else to worry about. It's been done.
So how did you kind of land into that position with this?
Yeah.
Guys, is it a cast crew?
So I created the Team Fearless, the Ride Fearless app. And what that is a circuit for barrel racers all around the country. And it's actually now in Brazil and Canada as well. And you can count any race that you ever compete in. And it all goes to points toward your state and your country. Cool. And then you also, on that app, you get to create a barn. So you get your horse. Okay. When I was a kid.
Let's hear it.
When I was a kid, there's this video game or something. And it was Barbie had horses and I had my barn. And, and you got to name your horses and feed it carrots and all that.
Yes, I do. I do kind of know what you're talking about.
You went on trail rides and you got to
yes, and you when you're riding, you could see the horse if it was between your hands.
Yes. Yeah. And then you'd find this hidden cottage and then there's all this cool shit in the cottage. Okay, yes. I don't have all that on the app. I just made you guys all really excited for nothing. But however, there is a barn. And you get to have your horse, all your horses in the barn. All of this part is free. So you get to have your horses in the barn, their pictures. You can submit the results. It automatically updates their LTE. And so you get to see that next to their name. Other people can see it next to their name if you want it public. There's a social wall on it, and that's all very positive and like has to do everything with barrel racing. You know, none of the, you have to scroll through all the negative stuff that you see on Facebook that can be quite draining. Like this is all very uplifting. And if you want, you can add any of your results that you're adding to your horse's barn. You can count that toward points for your year end, for your state, region, and nationals. And that is only $50 a horse for the whole year. So the new year starts January 1st.
So then when you say the state, the region, the nationals, explain that part a little bit, because that's all through the people like who have the app, right? Like that's kind of like who you're competing with essentially.
Yeah. You're only competing, and I just call it Team Fearless, right? You're only competing with individuals that are part of Team Fearless. And so if you nominate your horse for $50, then anywhere you compete at, whether it's a local jackpot, a super show, you get different points depending on where you're at. That counts for your state, and then also your region, and then also nationals.
And where'd you come up with the name?
Oh, so I had an injury in 2010 at Houston, and I couldn't walk, and I damaged the band of nerves around my tailbone. And it was horrible. It was nerve damage is the worst because I broke my sacrum and I herniated all these discs and like broke some thoracic spine and like, all this different stuff at this. You know, if you watch back Houston, you'd never know because my saddle slid and I hit the back of it wrong. But it was a horrible experience for me. And like going through that recovery process, having to do all the underwater walking, I couldn't walk. So I had to do everything underwater, because your body
take all the weight off.
10%, of your body weight underwater. And I was really lucky because my dad had played football for the Lobos there. And so I got to go in there with the trainers. And they had a underwater treadmill with a camera. And you could watch your legs move with the treadmill, which does something psychologically, I believe, as well for you. And that speeds up the healing process, along with, all the other therapy that I did there. Mm-hmm. But that was the thing, like, we didn't really know if I was ever going to be able to ride again, be athletic again, do anything like that at that level that I was, because I had already qualified for the finals once. And, I was born into it. So it's one of those things was like, this is what we do. Yeah. And so that, it was very hard. And I had to really come to terms with like the thought process of not being able to maybe do what I had in mind for my life, and really giving everything up to God and like what he had planned for me in life. And
that's hard. It's a hard thing to do.
It's easy to say.
Yeah.
And it sounds easy that I'm saying it, but to actually give that up is a very difficult process. Yeah. And it was kind of one of those things where it's like, when I finally did, and it's not like giving up, it's just like,
sometimes your plan is not the best plan, right?
Yeah. It's like allowing God's plan to take over and being okay no matter what, and accepting that that is the best possible outcome for your life. And that is part of your purpose, even though you might want something else. And that's huge. And I have to remind myself that every day, you know what I mean? In different circumstances. So, but the minute I did give it up to God and to his plan, and like I truly felt peace about it, I started healing very rapidly, which is kind of wild.
Yeah. And
so I started healing rapidly, and I had already had to, doctor release out of the Dodge National Finals, which is now called the NFR Open. And so I had a doctor release out of that, didn't get to go to that. I had qualified for Calgary, which was a huge dream of mine.
Yeah.
I'd never been. When we were at the NFR the year before, that was the goal. Get in the top 9 so we can go to Calgary. Because like I knew my horse would like that pin.
Yeah. And it'd be so cool to go.
Yeah. And so that was kind of the next goal was, can I compete at Calgary? So a couple weeks out of the NFR Open, I made a run at home and my legs didn't work to push me up out of the saddle. And I hit the back of the saddle so hard, it knocked me out. Yeah. And so that was like where I had to make that phone call where it's like, I don't get to go. And I'm going to say this on your podcast because it still bothers me for some reason. But the girl behind me, the WPRA kept calling me, asking me if I was going to go so they could allow the other girl behind me to move up. Totally fine.
Yeah, understandable.
Facebook blows up pray for this other girl. She might get to go to the NFR Open. And I'm like, if you're praying for her, you guys are praying against me. And like, this is serious.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like, why can't,
Yeah. And that really, it felt like everything was against me in that moment in time, which I think maybe the reason I'm voicing this is to have like the understanding of like the extra emotion as well. You know what I mean? That was going into it. Whereas like, you know, a lot of times when everything's falling apart, you still have like a support system, and it did not feel that way.
You felt just empty and alone.
Yeah,
and
very, very alone. Like nobody really
in the dark alley by yourself.
you're getting really dark and deep. Like baby.
No, it is hard. And also like social media is hard, you know, like social media is a great tool, but also a really hard tool. Like
I can't imagine having social media the way it is now. Like, you know, because we had it, but it was nothing like it is now, where it's like all everybody does every day.
Yes.
And it's like how we communicate with each other.
Yes.
And it's like how we keep up with the, you know, the world.
If it's not on Facebook, it's not real.
Yeah. This is, I mean, it's huge now. So I really give it up to everybody that competes in any professional sport with having to deal with that. And I think it's easier for like the younger generations coming up because they are born into it, like versus us, where it's like, we didn't really have that. We had MySpace, you know, which
if you weren't in the top 8.
And we had our own songs and like we had our theme songs. Like that was fun. You know, it's a little bit different. But to make, you know, super long story, a little bit shorter, I didn't get to go to the NFR Open. And then when it came close to Calgary and I had to let them know with that, I decided to enter a race and not do it at home. And it was actually closed gate. So I knew I was going to hit the back of the saddle. And my horse did good. And, you know, I was like, okay, like it made me sick to my stomach, but I mean, I think I can do this.
Yeah.
And so I made my way up to Calgary. I had to have my brother help drive me because my foot didn't work to push on the gas pedal very long. Like I had to have my feet up. You know, constantly stretching, everything. Like in order for my legs to work at all, really, I had to work out that day, do all the therapy, run stairs for them to like push me up out of the saddle to leave a barrel.
Is that like blood flow kind of sort of thing?
I think it's just like a nerve damage thing, you know? And so we get there. And my horse is also crippled. Like he had a gangster walk is what I called it. Yeah. Like they'd be like, your horse is limping. And I'm like, it's fine. Like,
we're 2 peas in a pod. We're good.
Like, yeah. Like if he didn't want to do it, he wouldn't. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so like he'd, you know, walk out of the arena with his head all high and so proud of himself and just be limping just a little bit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but I mean, it was kind of cool experience because when we got there, I won the first round. And I was just grateful to be there. I had never imagined being able to be that competitive again, to be able to compete against the best in the world, because it's the top 10 in the world that get to go back then, plus the top 4 Canadian. Like that's it. It's the hardest rodeo to qualify, or harder than the NFR. Yeah. So to be there at that level and win first was so cool. And you asked me where the, you know, Team Fearless, the Ride Fearless came from. Well, I didn't know what to write on the autograph sheets when I had won the first round. And I had read a book by Max Aceto that called Fearless, you know, throughout this journey. And so that's why I started writing was, you know, Be Fearless, which eventually turned into Ride Fearless.
That's cool.
And then, you know, we won the next round and the next round and the next round. Yeah. All of a sudden they're like, oh my God, this has never been done before. Like you won every single round at Calgary. And I was like, I had no idea it had never been done before. That wasn't the goal.
You were just so grateful to be there.
I was so grateful to be there. It was like every run was a blessing. And I was taking in the smell of the dirt on the track. And I could tell you what the colors of the houses that were around. Like I was just soaking it all in because I didn't know, you know what I mean, if it was ever going to happen again. Right. You know, or like how long, or if this was even going to work, or, you know, it was a very cool experience.
Were you still riding your little pimp walk horse?
No, yeah, that was him. Yeah. No, and that's what was so cool about him too, to be able to go out there and win every round at Calgary. He still holds that record. He's the only horse that's ever been in there and not won first. So I know they say Mary Berger did it on Mo, but she was 4th in the 10 round. Yeah. And then made it back and won the long round. Yeah. So, but Shotgun, and I say that because I really feel like Shotgun deserves, you know what I mean?
No,
Yeah,
I mean,
like
horses
that
are
credit
like,
for that.
horses are like, you're nothing without
Oh,
your
man,
horse. Like,
yeah.
they deserve all the credit.
Yeah, and like he was just an amazing animal and athlete, and he held records. Like I won college nationals on him, and he held the record at Ellensburg for 10 years until Benny broke it, and then and it got broke again this year.
How was he bred?
He's a cool horse. He's by his sire is Nonstop Firewater, and then he's out of a Magnolia Bar Mare, which is similar to like what Brittany runs.
Yeah.
And then Nonstop Firewater, its last baby, I actually got the last breeding to him this last year. So my mare, the first mare I made the finals on, pulled out this baby that's now by Shotgun Sire out of my mare that I made the finals on, which is really cool because it's the last one.
Yeah.
And it's a filly. So I'm like, it's mine.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So since we're kind of talking about like your horsepower, let's talk like some horses. I mean, Shotgun, yes, has definitely made some history for you. Has there been some other horses in your life that just really stand out?
I think I've learned something on every single horse. And I think if you're not learning something on every single horse that's come into your life, you're not a true horseman. So, good and bad. The bad ones are the ones I learned the most on.
Yes.
Because you're stuck with them. You have to figure it out, especially if you're out there, because when you qualify for the NFR, it's like, that's great. But you've also qualified for Houston, San Antonio, all these limited entry rodeos that you can't turn down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
that's great money. Yeah. That's, the experience alone.
Yeah. So if your horse gets hurt and you're stuck with whatever you like, your backup or whatever the next door neighbor has, or your colt that's never been anywhere, you have to figure things out very quickly. And that's where I've learned the most, is where it's down to the wire and I have a 5-year-old that's never been to a rodeo and I have to figure it out. You know what I mean? Or I have a horse that's a problem horse that's been ducking with somebody that I have on the trailer and like, I got to figure it out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Those are the times where I swallowed my pride and rode with whoever I could get my hands on to like fix these issues, like reining trainers, or like I rode with Sherry several times. Kim Schultz has helped me a lot. Fred Hunter, I ask random questions to Sue Smith. She probably thinks I'm a crazy person because I never I don't like ease into anything. Like I'm just like straight up.
Yeah.
Why are you doing that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Why?
Yeah.
Hey. Yeah. Why are you doing that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, but
I know.
Yeah. And if you don't ask, you're not going to know. And
No.
and I feel like too, like these people are not out working against you. They are willing to more than likely tell you, oh, I'm doing this because I had this random issue. And you're like, this has been my issue, like it's.
Yeah. Everybody's, if they've been around long enough, they've experienced whatever it is that you're experiencing in this moment.
Yeah.
And if you're around people that aren't willing to help you, you're around the wrong people. And that's what I probably miss about being on the professional, like the road to the NFR the most, is having access to these high vibrational individuals. You know what I mean? Because they're out there living their dream, doing what it takes to get to the next level, always. You know what I mean? Always progressing.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with you or their competition.
Yeah.
And I think that there's just like a mutual respect out there. And we love helping each other. Like we love it. And we love bouncing back and forth. We did a really cool clinic with Maria Thompson, put it on. Her ranch is called Infinity Ranch, where she brought together like 4 or 5 clinicians. And it was me, Ashley Schaefer, Tana Rennick, Kimmy Wall, and Kristen Weaver. Kristen Weaver. And it was so cool the night before and the night like after, where we were just, drinking our wine and whatnot and bullshitting and chat. I wish you guys could hear those conversations.
Yes, those are the ones that are...
They're different.
Yeah.
Like when they say sit with winners, the conversation's different. It is, but we're all passionate and we're passionately wanting to create something together.
Yeah. Yeah, that's neat. So you're from Colorado, and you did mention you were kind of born into it.
So I was born and raised in Albuquerque. And, from the time I graduated high school for 12 years straight, I pro rodeoed. I was never not on the road. So I qualified for the NFR 3 times on 3 different horses, which was a big goal of mine. Like I'm very much, I'll get bored with something. So I never want to have the same experience twice.
Yeah.
So it's always had to be a different horse.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then, but also was all the teens, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, and then also some 20s in there. So for a while there, I was like known as Queen of the Bubble.
Yeah.
And that was probably mainly because I didn't just crave being on the road. So I would go to the qualifying rodeos that, you had qualified for, and just kind of seeing how it went. Would go to my favorite rodeos during the summer. And if it looked like I could make the NFR, then I would go to the Northwest.
Yeah.
And it either worked out or it didn't. And I liked doing that because I never ran out of money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Doing it that way.
So did your family grew up in the horse industry and all of that also?
So my grandpa did all the events. He, rode bulls and steer wrestled and team ropes and calf roped, everything. My uncle has, I swear, more saddles than Trevor Brazil. I don't know. But in the amateur world, you know what I mean? And so very instilled in the mindset of rodeo competition, and had that. My mom ran barrels, and she's actually really good breakaway roper. And I'm half the size of my mom, so I didn't get that gene.
Yeah.
And then my brothers all rope. And
did you ever pick up a rope?
So I roped all the way through college, and then I roped at Tucson at our college rodeo. I'm just going to tell you how prideful I am. I roped at the college rodeo, and my rope, it broke clean and everything.
Have to go closer with the rain. Sorry.
The breakaway roping, and the rope broke clean and everything, but then it opened up and the calf went through it after. Well, Tucson isn't, I don't even know, a million.
Yeah.
It's so long. It's such a long arena. They're the rules state that the rope has to stay around its neck until it exits the arena. And I'm like, well, that's a bullshit rule.
Yeah.
And I think it was Josh Peak's brother, John. Right. And I told him, that's ridiculous. And I was like, he's like, those are the rules. And so I looked at him and I said, I guess I'll have to win the all around without breakaway then. And I quit right then. That was it.
That was done.
Yeah, I was done. So I did the goat tying and the barrel raising, and I did end up winning the all around, but it came down to the very last run in the goat tying, and I knew it was going to be my last run ever because I wasn't going to continue college rodeoing after that because I was professional rodeoing with barrel racing, and it was a 6 something, and threw my hands up. I didn't even know I won the all around. But I thought that was kind of funny because I'm like, who does that? Who smarts off to their coach?
Yeah,
and then you know what I mean. That makes it happen.
Yeah.
That's just the God thing. That was just a smirky God thing that happened. But anyways, that's the last time I roped.
Do you ever think about it now, with the way that breakaways kind of turned and done? Do you ever kind of think about?
Yeah, I miss roping on my colts for sure. I'll swing ropes on them and stuff, and I'll track a little bit. But competitive wise, I would really enjoy to breakaway rope again if I don't make it a job. If I
it was just fun.
If I could not make it, if that is a possibility,
is that not a thing?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. You know what I mean? I would like to do it for fun. I would probably only do the amateur rodeos for that reason. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I'd probably make it another big thing. I'm an Aquarius, so everything's a big deal.
Yeah.
Everything's all in.
Can't just do something this big.
No. And then it it snowballs from there. Right now, you're like, you want to do a podcast? I'm like, yeah. And then we can get in business together and
I'm
do
all about
ABCD.
it. Let's do it.
That's how
I'm
my
very
brain
much
works.
so that way too. So I do just kind of want to share, because I think it is really neat that, there's a lot of people, and that's the cool thing about my podcast is it's majority local West Texas, people who don't get to know these drinking wine at the table with all the girls. So what are some of the, as you're going down the road to the NFR or with these girls, what are some stories that you could just be this was the coolest experience? That's a big question.
Yeah. And it's, it's hard to just think of something I'm sure there's, I have lots of stories with my traveling partners that were hilarious and funny. And I hauled with a girl named Lacey Wilson. Do you know who that is? She lives around here somewhere. Okay. Lacey Wilson is, she is a mix between Morticia and Annie Oakley. So she's kind of like Beth Dutton, but darker.
Okay.
Okay. That can be like, you know, she's got like long brown hair and she's always got the cowboy hat on and the long cigarette out of her mouth. And, you know, and she's beautiful and hilarious. And so we had so much fun. And like one of the things that comes up like into mind is, okay, I'm going to tell you this story first about her. We broke down and we were stuck at the fairgrounds in Golden, which is kind of just on the river and it's secluded.
Yes.
And she was in her trailer and I was in mine. And I had gotten out to grain the horses and I heard something super creepy coming from the shed. And it was this guy, it was like a creepy noise, okay? So, of course, like every scary movie, I go investigate.
Oh, my gosh. I would have not. I've been like, get your shit. We got to go.
I know. Smart people do that. And like, you watch a scary movie and you're like, why would you run up the stairs? And I would never do that. But like, when
Sydney's like, I'm running up the stairs.
Yeah, like my body led, you know? Like, and so I'm like peeking around the corner and there's this guy in there and he's got his hands crossed around his chest and he's weaving back and forth and laughing like the Joker, like, I know. So I'm like, oh my God. And I was probably 19 or 20 years old. So of course I'm freaking out. And so I run over to Lacey's trailer to tell her that like, we got to get out of here. Okay. And I open the door and she's sitting at her table and she's got her gun out the window and she's got her cigarette in. And I was like, Lacey. And then I see the situation and I'm reading it and I'm like, what is she doing? And she's like, it's all right, man. I've been out here watching these wild dogs all night. It's like, what? And so I got this crazy guy, you know what I mean? And then I got just Lacey being Lacey.
Yeah.
And I guarantee she did have that gun out there all night.
Yeah.
Just smoking her cigarette. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I'm like, all right, dude, we got to go. Like,
this is it.
So, I mean, but that's, you know, that's the end of the story. Like, we got the cops to come get the guy and stuff. And then we had to leave a rig and take another one, all that, and get to the next rodeo. And that's just rodeo. Like, when people post on Facebook, they're like, oh, I blew a tire, our tire's like on fire, running next to, like, that's just how it is. Like, you know, when you quit posting shit like that is when you've been on the road long enough, because like, that's just life.
That's life now.
Yeah, that's life out there. And I mean, it's just like, you know, figure out how to get through it as quickly as possible so you can make the rodeo. Like, I can't tell you, that's how me and my husband met, is I hopped in with him. Like, I caught a ride.
I just hitchhiked. Here we go. Hi.
They were headed. Yeah. I heard they were headed to where I needed to be. And I was broke down. And I was like, I didn't give him an option.
How do you guys communicate like that, right? Like, is there some sort of thing that's like, hey, pro rodeo athletes, like, directory, call these people? Like, how do you kind of get to know?
Saw them. No, I overheard him and his traveling partners talking about making the drive from, where were we? White Sulphur Springs to Ellensburg. And I had made the short go at Ellensburg, and I had one rig there and one rig in White Sulphur Springs, and I was on the bubble, and this rig was headed to another rodeo, and I was supposed to fly. My flight was canceled because there's this huge storm. And so I'm like, how am I going to get there? Where I overheard them talking. I was like, look, dude, like, I just need a ride for me. I'll ride in the manger. Yeah. Like, you know, and that's how we met, is because they let me hitchhike over there. That's only, like, I've caught in a ride with a truck driver before to the airport because we were stuck in traffic and his lane was open, ours wasn't. And I jumped in and I was so glad I made it through that. And like, and I caught a ride with the Sal bronc rider one time. I got to the airport and I was on the bubble, and I was actually leasing. Lacey Wilson was letting me use her horse at the last rodeo of the year, San Bernardino. And I was on the bubble bad, like, you know, 15th, 16th. And she's going to let me use her horse, but she was up at Poway that morning in Slack. And so she was headed one way. And you know what I mean? She's like, well, just get dropped off at this airport and find a ride to Poway and then jump in with me. And
this is all before like Uber and stuff, right?
Oh, yeah. And then I'll find you on the road and pick you up. And then we'll head to San Bernardino and we'll make it. Barrels is second to last event. It'll be okay. So I get to the airport and I'm like, okay, now what? And I see some saddle bronc riders with their saddles. Yeah. And I'm like, where are you headed? And they're like, we're headed to Poway. And I was like, perfect. I need to jump in with you. And they're like, all right, so we're headed this way. And then Lacey, being who she is, she's like, oh man, I passed that exit 20 miles ago. And I'm like, damn it, Lacey. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, this is serious. Like, I'm trying to make the NFR. You know what I mean? So then those saddle bronc riders dropped me off with some of their friends that were team ropers at Texas Roadhouse. And they're all eating. And so I sit down at the table and I'm just kind of like rubbing my leg, like, man, I don't know. And they were headed to Kingman to the rodeo there. And all of a sudden they look at me and they're like, wait, are you up tonight? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, oh shit. I mean, plates went flying and we book it out of that restaurant. I think we didn't pay. Like, I don't think they paid.
You're like, yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I didn't eat. I didn't have time. But so they jumped in the car and drove me to San Bernardino. And I remember I woke up, these poor random people, I'm drooling on their pillow in the back seat. Like, just lack of sleep, just drool. And then we get there and the rodeo started and everything. And Lacey's got her horse saddled and she goes, man, I hate to tell you this, but Sheena just won Poway. So I don't even know if you win this rodeo, if you'll make it. And so I'm like, all right. And I said, well, how do I ride your horse? And she goes, all right, man. Well, you just kind of turn. And I'm like, oh my God.
I just kind of turned.
I'm like, and it's such a big deal. I'm like, this is it. I have to win first. You know what I mean?
And I just turned.
You just kind of go in there and you just kind of, and I'm like, oh, holy shit. You know what I mean?
Are you riding in her saddle and all the things at this point?
All her shit. And I'm just like, oh dear God. And I just said a prayer and went in there and I shit you not if we didn't win that rodeo. And I made the NFR.
You just turned.
Yeah, I just turned. Like, I'm just going to ride into like the points I would take a horse.
Yeah.
And, like, I watched a bunch of her videos and I'm like, I'm just going to do my body position, like what she's doing. And I mean, if it's either going to work or it's not. And at that point in time, like, it almost takes the pressure off when it's such high stakes because you have no choice but to lay it all out there.
Have you ever even rode this horse before?
No, I've never been on that horse before.
Yeah.
No, his name is Cotton.
Yeah.
And yeah, so we won the rodeo and I qualified for the finals by $200 that year. Yeah, it's crazy. Lacey, she's hilarious. And we didn't know. You don't know. Like, after you run, like, it's all got to be tallied up. And, it's not like what we have now where you can see instant results.
Yeah.
And so we're sitting there at the campfire that night and you just don't know. You're just like, I hope that was enough.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You did what you could do.
Yeah. I hope that was enough. And it was, but I have when you ask about traveling partners, that was my favorite one because she was so hilarious.
Yeah. The Beth Dutton of the barrel racing world.
You just go in there and you should ride Cotton up in there and just kind of swoop it. I'm like, oh my God.
You're like, this is her strategy.
What does that even mean? So, but yeah, lots of close stories. So many, bad ones and good ones. And it's so fun. I'm so glad to have those memories forever.
What is your favorite NFR memory?
Oh, well, Cody proposing, the back number ceremony. Yeah. So that's obviously my favorite.
Yeah.
And he's not a crowd person. So for him to do something so public was so out of character for him. Like, I would have never expected.
What was your
first?
Of course you're like,
I backed up. Like, everyone's like, oh my God, is she saying no? Like,
you're just like, what is going on?
He was like getting down and I'm like, are you okay? I was like, great, he's having a panic attack because we're taking photos.
And there's so many people here.
There's so many people. I thought that's what was happening. But no, I mean, it was honestly, I was kind of sad that we didn't have like a private moment together because after that moment, they take you onto the stage. And then you're in the back and you're waiting. And so it was like this huge moment that happened. And then I didn't get to like experience it with him. Like, after,
you had to go to a different moment.
Yeah. I was like, I have to leave now. Like, yeah. So that kind of, that was,
that's really special. That's still a really cool moment. Like how it
was very special and sweet of him to do that.
And then after he probably had his panic attack. Like, oh,
probably.
shit.
Yeah. I never asked. Yeah. No, exactly. So I was on stage when they like gave me my number. I was just like so excited. I remember Kelly Corrier's mom was like waving at me and I was like, oh my God, look. You know what I mean? It's just the first person I told. Yeah. Like I'm on stage and I'm like, look. You know what I mean? Because I'm so excited. And she's like, oh my God. I'm like, I know.
You're like, it just happened.
I don't know where he is, but yeah.
That's so funny. So Vegas, what does your Vegas look like? So I know this year you're doing all that stuff like with the ride is right? Is
So
what it's called?
The movie is called Ride, and
Okay.
it's a premiere, and there's several actors from the Yellowstone cast that's on it. One of them's the main producer and the screenwriter. And it's really cool movie. So everybody should go right now and download Ride. And then after, download the Ride Fearless app.
Yes.
And then that's the first 2 days. Yeah, the first 2
So
days.
would you have to get there in advance?
I will. Yeah. Honestly, the hardest thing that I do is put on the show, the Ride Fearless show, because you have to navigate everyone's schedules, like all the guests. And then I'm a big talker if somebody wants to talk.
Yeah.
But to get, and I'm sure you experience this with your podcast, to get rodeo people to open up
It's hard.
is so hard.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can sit
And you want it to be organic, right? You want it to be like a conversation. I've had people that like I do podcasts with and like, do you want to send me a template? And I'm like, no, because I don't want to read something. I just want a conversation. Yeah. I literally want to record that conversation that you cannot get scripted.
Yeah.
And it's hard when people, it's like, that is the hardest part.
It's hard. And I'm not naturally, like, I'm surprised they have me doing it because I don't naturally know other competitors' stats. And I'm not super intrigued by people. I'm intrigued by people's like the personality and will to win.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm intrigued by that. Like that fires me up. But there's only so many rodeo questions you can ask. Like we all know how to get around 3 barrels for the most part. Like, you know what I mean? And there's only so many ways, you know what I mean? You can ride a bull and there's only so many ways you can rope. Like,
what was your strategy tonight?
Yeah. Jesus, like 10 days in a row. It's like, what are we going to talk about today? And I have to really just kind of think about the people who are watching, the audience, they're not there all 10 days.
Yeah.
So it's new to them every day.
That's right.
So, and trying to keep that type of like upbeat attitude, even though you might be a little repetitive in your head.
Yeah. Do you, I mean, obviously, you know, Coleman Proctor.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think one of my favorite things to watch when he goes to Vegas is just his like random TikToks that he throws up of like them eating pizza in the car, right? And they're like passing and they're trying to go through here and they're like, we got to shove this pizza down our face because we got to go here and got to go there. And like just I think as a person who's never competed at the professional level, like we like to hear those stories. Like, you know, we can all relate in the arena. Yeah. But we can't relate outside because there's so different lives. Yeah. And I think those are the really cool stories to talk about is like not necessarily, oh, what did it take to get you here today? But like, what did your morning look like? What does today look like for you? Or do you like have a lucky pair of socks or, you know, like those types of things that people can truly relate to. I mean, we all can't relate to running a $250,000 barrel horse that is, you know what I mean? I couldn't imagine, you know, or like just some of the greatest. And I don't know. I mean, like there really is only so many questions you can ask somebody. That's something I'll probably go forward thinking about too, is like, what is relatable for the audience, you know, for these people, because I mean, being one of those people, you think differently, you know what I mean? So you have, you know, different, you just don't think about like what everybody else might want to actually know. So I think just like keeping it real, you know, like keeping it real, like the stories, right? Like what you just told me about, like going down the road or like those types of things. Like essentially you're the celebrities of the rodeo world, right? And like people look up to celebrities, but celebrities have real lives too. Yeah. And I think that's a thing to like kind of. It's gotten so big where the rodeo athletes are celebrities now. And it's insane. So it wasn't like that. TikTok, it wasn't that is on fire right now. It wasn't like that when I went. And I mean, I think it's really cool. And it's about time and everybody puts enough into it. But it's also still, I don't think there's like a lot of personality with a lot of people. So I think it is cool when somebody does that, like has the TikToks and is open on social media where we can see that kind of stuff. And it is fun. But
The schedule in Vegas is so busy when you've qualified for the NFR, and I try to keep that in mind now with the show, with having them on as guests. My number one goal is to be respectful of them because they're the athletes and they're there to compete, and this is extra for them.
This is their life. Like, this is where they make their living. Like, this isn't just
this was the whole point.
Oh, we're going to Vegas. Like, it's truly where this is going to be the money that they make for the year. Like, it costs a lot of money to go down the road. Like, not at a professional.
It's
like,
part
rate.
of the job.
Yeah.
And it's also in front of millions of viewers. And when you mess up, as well as when you win.
Yeah.
So there's that. Like, I remember my my little brother actually started dating this girl after she did this, but in social media just kind of gotten big on Facebook last time, or not this time, the specific time I had made it. And I'm like, one of my horses got disqualified. It was just like super catty and political with the other girls. It's not like that anymore. So like, nobody needs to be worried about that kind of stuff. Like, it's totally different. New generations have come up. Everybody's for everybody. Yeah. But like, then it was a little more catty. Yeah. And, got my horse disqualified.
Oh, Sharky.
Just being naughty, like naughty in the alley. And
like, define naughty, right? Like, it's,
well, I mean, yeah,
it was kind of bad. It was.
I told them, I said, because this was after the first round, she won second and ran all the way to the camera pit on the first barrel and still won second. I'm like, this mare is going to collect all the money. Yeah. Here. Like, that was easy for her, and it wasn't a good run. Yeah. And she won second. And that was the only round I got to run her in. And I told the president at the time, I said, if you disqualify me now for her rearing up in the alley, you're going to have to disqualify every single horse from here on out. And it's a long 10 rounds. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, and it was an ordeal. Had I known more, like, I'm so more assertive with myself, and I've like grown so much as a person.
Oh, it's hard, and it's intimidating. And you're like, you don't want to piss them off too much. And then the next thing, like,
then it gets worse, I guess. But like, now, knowing what I know now, I would have 100% fought that. Yeah. Like, it was not fair. Yeah. And, I mean, there's just like so much more to that year that had happened with just like politically.
That was the end of the year. Yeah.
No, it was like at that finals.
Yeah. Like, all that year leading up to it was just.
I mean, like, you work so hard to get there. You know what I mean? The run in the first round, and they're like, oh, you can't run. They called me 2 hours before the next round. 2 hours before the next round, said I couldn't run that horse anymore. Yeah. So, I mean, there's that. Yeah. There's stuff that happens that you have no idea about, and then behind the scenes. And so,
did you end up not running that horse the rest of the night?
I tried.
just paint, paint like a little, like,
I'm like,
what? It's a sorrow with the complete, like, this horse has a blaze face? Weird. Okay.
Yeah, right? I know. I did. And I got fined for having 2 horses in the alley because they wouldn't let me run her. And I was like halfway down the alley, and I had to run back on foot, and I grabbed my other one and ran him down the wrong alley. So I left that NFR owing them money. That's is how much crazy. I got fined there.
I would like to do a whole nother podcast. Like, I've had some like ropers and some other people. I got to go like towards Stephenville, but I would like to do like a fining NFR. Like, just talk just about it's just because it's crazy. There's so many, like, the pull up. Like, if your horse broke its leg and you pull it up, you're still gonna get a fine. I don't know if it's that severe anymore, but I did at one point.
Yeah, it's I wish, regardless of anything. And I think they're getting better about it, but I wish that they could just have a better facility for us when we get there. And that's like probably one of the reasons I don't try to make the NFR anymore. Not to kill anybody's dream. If you've never been that far, you 100% need to have that experience. Yeah. 100% do everything it takes to get there, because it is life-changing. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's so cool. Yeah. I'm smiling right now.
Because I just loved it.
I loved it. I loved it. Yeah. But when you make it a job, and then it turns into your job to make it every year, then things start to really bother you. Like the warm-up pin being rock hard, like cement. You know what I mean? Or like, where are we supposed to warm up? Like, these are the top 15 horses in the world. Yeah. And you want us to warm up on cement and stand in an alley while a wagon goes by and 20 flag girls, and not have our horses rear up when they go in? Like, are you kidding me? Yeah. You know what I mean? 10 rounds in a row like that. I mean, they've never seen anything like that. Yeah. And
there's really not a way to prepare them for something like that either.
No. Why would you? Yeah. It's dangerous. Yeah. So it would be dangerous to prepare for that. Yeah. So I think that it's dangerous, and I think that it's sad that they make enough money and we're all starving to the point that no one will stand up and make a change.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They make so much money and we're so scared because we're starving to lose the money that they will give us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And what we can get, that no one makes a change.
Yeah.
It's sad. And the ground's horrible. I've never left there with the sound horse. It's sad. Sad deal. Also super fun. You should do it.
Also, life dreams. I totally think you should go.
You should do it.
Just know that when you get there, the ground's going to be hard. You're going to get like
but
all
you
these
don't
other
care.
things.
Like the first time you've ever made it, you could those. You know, I mean, you're just so glad to be there. You know what I mean? You're like trying not to throw up on camera. Like, you know,
I'm sure.
So that's really cool.
Because not only is like the whole stadium packed, but then you have like millions of people watching on TV. Like it's
everything you ever wanted. I mean, it's everything you ever dreamed of. When you think of like, I want to make the NFR, you're standing there for the grand entry and you hear Elvis singing that first night. You know what I mean? And you're just like, oh my God, this is it.
Yeah.
And it's like, I did it. You know?
Yeah.
And it's like,
just probably getting to do the practices, like walking in and it's like, this is it. Like this is the Thomas.
I mean, it
and
looks
Mac.
just like Nampa. If you guys have never been to the NFR, then just enter Nampa and it's going to feel exactly like that. You're in a long alley and it's yellow. But it's really cool. I think that with all these big barrel races going on, like the Texan and the pink, all the buckles.
I'm so sad. I missed all those. Like I was not like, I haven't ran. Well, I take that back. A couple months ago, I jumped on this horse. I hadn't ran since 2013 though, before that. And I was just jumping on this girl's horse because she was trying to sell it. And like, we didn't have any of that. Like we didn't have those big, like, I mean, life-changing barrel races without having to like, I mean, there was the Ogden 8 and under was really big. And then there was, what's that one in Salina?
The Red Rider, the Futurity?
No, it's gotta been years ago. It was in Salina though.
Utah?
Yeah. And it was a huge, so, cause I'm from Grand
the
Junction.
Glenwood Memorial. And then
I mean, but there was like that kind of stuff. Yeah. There wasn't like the stuff that there is today and everyone's being able to enter.
Yeah, I mean, you can and I know it seems expensive because it's $1,500 to enter the Texan, but you get 2 runs and both of those rounds pay. And then the full round, the big round, pays $100,000 to win first in the 1D, $75,000 to win first in the 2D. The 3D was like $50,000. I don't know.
The 5D is still $30,000.
The 5D was $30,000 to win first, and the second in every division was $25,000 and down 12 places.
Yeah.
The last time I competed for $100,000 was at Calgary, and I had to be in the top 9 in the world to do it.
Yeah.
So it's like, you guys need to think about this. And
there's
cost
opportunities.
me a hell of a lot more than $1,500, especially to get my horses across the border. So it's like, because I mean, rodeo is prestigious, but we have way more opportunities out there now with these super show races. Yeah.
No, and it's neat because it's in those deals is like, you don't have to be the top 9, right? Like you can be the local jackpotter that just does it to have fun, and you still get the opportunity to get big money. Like, so it's really neat.
Yeah. Life changing. I mean, it's huge. So I think it's really cool. And I'm so grateful for those type of producers.
And they didn't have the all in either in Vegas at the time. They didn't have any of that. Like, it's just crazy how the world is, like the equine world itself is evolving tremendously.
Yeah. So the year I won the all in, I think I won more that year between like the All In and the Patriot than I did in Vegas to that date.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Like you went to more.
Two places.
Yeah.
2 places.
But now the NFR pays more. So like that, like when last time I made it paid like 14 something a round, and it pay 30, over 30 grand a round now. Like it's totally worth it now.
It's like 32, right? Or something.
Yeah, I mean, that's good money.
Yeah.
You're only competing against 14 other girls.
Yeah.
And half of them are going to mess up. Their horses are sore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're warming up on concrete.
Or I mean, like the nerves. I can only imagine the nerves in the alley and all the things. Like,
yeah, I think the horses get more nervous probably than the girls. But like the first round is always, I think everybody's nervous because it's so unknown. Like no one's made a run. You don't know who's in the average. You don't know if you're in the average. You don't know if you're going to win every round and have the opportunity to win the world that year. and you don't know if, it's just going to be a shit show.
Yeah.
So,
like, here comes the first round.
Here comes the first round.
It's going to set the mood for the rest of it.
Rolling the dice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then from then out, then your goals start changing a little bit. Like, are you running for the average? Are you running for round wins? Are you just trying to not look dumb because your horse is not working that week?
So if you were to like bring 2 horses and say your first one goes out, your second one is just not working, can you like phone a friend? I mean, how does that work?
You can phone a friend.
Yeah, can you like phone a friend? Like, shit is hitting the fan.
You have that option.
Yeah.
You have the option, but I heard recently that they made a rule that a horse cannot have competed anywhere since the NFR started with anybody else. Like a horse can't. So if somebody has a horse out there, then they can't have competed on it yet.
Yeah. But only since, like, if it starts on the 7th of December, it just couldn't have ran since the 7th. It could run the 6th, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's interesting. I wonder what their logic is kind of behind that.
I don't know. And I honestly don't know if that's true. I just heard it from somebody. I haven't looked into the rule, but I do know for sure there's a rule that as an NFR qualifier, you can't compete starting like the date of the first meeting. So a few days before, like, you can't compete anywhere.
Yeah.
Prior and during the NFR dates. And so I could see how maybe they're making it about a horse too. Like, I think it's silly if it's about a horse. I think, like, we've, worked our butts off that whole time. It's a new round. It's a new rodeo every day.
Well, it's like not like the horses ran there,
it's not
like
a futurity.
multiple rounds.
Like, it's just, and what are the chances of somebody jumping on a horse they've never ran before, you know what I mean? And running it down the Thomas and Mack and kicking everyone's ass. Like, come on. Like, like, the odds are against you anyways, because you've gotten to the point where that's what you have to do. Is you're no longer on your NFR horses. So when I had qualified and I needed a horse, when my horse had gotten disqualified and then my other horse was crippled, I called everyone I knew that had a nice indoor horse, and everyone's horses were out for the winter because this was before the all-in. This specific year
they kick them out and you're done with it. Yeah,
like nobody's horses were in shape. Like they've, and so that was hard, and like trying to get them. And the ones that did want to lease your horse, you don't really want that one. You know what I mean? You're like, thank you, but
jeez.
Yeah.
You're
and
so,
but I jumped on like Taylor Jacob that year had a horse with Kim Schultz that I had ran actually earlier that year. I had jumped on and ran, and I got to run it. She had it there as a backup.
That's nice. Yeah. That's really cool. Mm-hmm. It's neat. Like, again, like, you guys are really not all there as enemies. Like,
No.
Like, you guys want the best for each other.
Yeah, everybody, like, we all understand. Like, we've all been through the ups and downs.
Yeah.
And like we know what that feels like. Yeah. We're not laughing. We're just like, oh, like, we might be laughing, but it's because like I've been there.
Your turn.
You know what I mean? Like,
it's your turn this time. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's pretty cool. I think everybody should do it. And there's just so much opportunity everywhere now.
So if you could tell your younger self something, what would it be?
It would be, I don't know. I was just like, I really have so much respect for my younger self because I was so passionate. You know what I mean? I was so passionate and goal driven. And like when I quit rodeoing professionally and I wanted to take a break from all that, and like I never partied, I didn't do anything, I never drank, like I didn't do anything. And so like then I, like kind of started participating in events, you know what I mean? And doing like the fun stuff that I like didn't do before because I looked at myself as a professional athlete, and like, and my aunts,
you didn't
uncles,
have time.
Like, everybody who was helping me, like I was very much driven to the point where it's like, I'm not going to mess this up for everybody else who has put the energy and time into making my dreams come true.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I guess I would just say that I'm very proud of you. And like when you're in the moment like that, you don't realize what it is that you're doing. You don't realize you're breaking. Like I held the San Antonio record for 10 years and Ellensburg record for 10 years and won Rookie of the Year, won college finals, national finals, and made the NFR the same year. Like, when you look back, you're like, wow, all that's really cool. When you're in the moment, you're just grinding to the next thing. You know what I mean?
Like this is great. Nothing. Now what do I do to get here? Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like, you have such big goals. Those are just the things that happen because your other goals.
And I don't think it's a bad thing that you don't have like a piece of advice. I mean, to be proud of yourself is amazing too.
Yeah.
Like, I think that
sounds so prideful, huh? No.
Yeah, no, but not really.
Like,
but
I think
mean,
now that I'm around normal people, like, and I know that sounds bad, but from being like, I grew up, my dad played pro football, you know what I mean? And all my family rodeos, so I was always around this mindset of professionalism. And then you're rodeoing and you're only around NFR qualifiers, and those are your people, you know what I mean? So then when you cut yourself off from that, you realize how the rest of the world is living and their mindset is different. And so that's when you look at it and you're like, wow, it's actually not that easy to have that mindset.
No,
it's not that easy.
People try so hard all the time.
And you don't realize that. And so that's,
but you didn't know any different either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I kind of wish
it's always the worst. Like when you watch and I'm not knocking, I mean, there's some little girls out there right now that are kicking butt and they are riding.
Yeah.
But it is always so hard when you watch because they don't know different. They're out there and they are just riding that horse, right?
Yeah.
They didn't choose to enter this rodeo or pay their electric bill. They didn't choose to do stuff like that, right? So they're just going, and it's like, it's so pure and it's so it's so neat to see those. So I mean,
it's their genuine love.
Yeah, when you don't know different, you just don't know different.
You don't have when you're a kid, like you don't have guilt. You're not thinking about and I think that's how we all should live, is that we should all have a goal that's so big that we'd be willing to give up anything for it.
Yeah.
You know, and if you don't, then you need to change something.
Yeah.
But
I think that's neat. So my final question that I always end all my podcasts with is, why is West Texas special to you? Now,
what? Because I did a clinic here.
No, my aunt lives in Big Springs. I don't know. No,
my aunt does live in Big Springs.
That's about
She's
it.
She's amazing, and I'm so glad I came because so I'm gonna make a TikTok, and it's called Madonna's Closet, and it's really just her closet, and it's just her closet, and she had $5,000 leather jackets with the fur and
did you steal some for Vegas?
Dude, I have 2 full bags.
Is that where? Because I've been watching your stuff and I'm like,
no, that's just stuff. Okay, my actual Vegas clothes I left in Vegas.
Okay,
and then me and my friend had a falling out that lives there, and so he has all my shit. He has all my Vegas clothes. I hope he still has them. I don't know.
How big was that falling out?
I mean, I know, right? It's I don't know. This is a weird thing.
But you have Madonna's Closet now.
But now I have Madonna's Closet. So I'm I was kind of banking on. So that was just the one TikTok I made was just the stuff I had in my closet.
Okay.
And then, so this is all my aunt's, and she's amazing. I mean, I have a whole bag of shoes and boots that I'm taking from her house.
Yeah.
And then another whole bag of just leather and fringe and you know what I mean, all the Vegas stuff, all the Vegas stuff. And
I think that's we're not going to Vegas this year, and I think that is the part that I love it. I love the dress up. It's the bigger the better, all the things.
I love this. Doing the show is the fun. It's funner than making the NFR for me.
Oh yeah,
because,
I'm sure.
It's a day thing, and I get to dress up for it, and then I still get to go out at night.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's so, and then if you want, you can still compete. Last year, I competed still.
That's cool.
And so I did really well at the Patriot last year. And I did the show, and I got to go to the NFR and watch. You know what I mean? It was so fun.
So where is the show? I don't think
It's on the Stetson stage at the Rio.
At the Rio.
Every day at 1:00.
Okay. The Rio.
Yeah. So, and it's fun, and it's fearless, and it's just kind of bringing, everybody's, mindsets, athletes and different singers and actors and stuff. And, just bringing them to the table and what they want to present out into the world, because that's all we're doing. And that's all you're doing, with your podcast and everything is
shedding light, talking to people.
Shedding light. Yeah, exactly. I love that.
I'm all about collaboration, just bounce off of one another.
Yeah.
That's where the ideas come from.
Yeah. I actually did a podcast. I was one of the first people to do a podcast ever in the rodeo world.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I woke up in the middle of the night and I was and God had told me you need to do this. And I had downloaded everything I needed on Spotify and iHeartRadio and all that. And I told my fearless story about the injury and kind of coming through that.
Yeah.
Not just Cliff Notes, you know what I mean? The whole thing. And that was my first, that was it. And after that, and then I did all the NFR qualifiers that year. That, not all, all of them. But, you know what I mean? The ones I knew that I had stories with and stuff. That was fun. And so I did all that. And then and that was it. It was okay, that's all God wanted from me. You know what I mean?
You were like, I got to go to the next thing. Yeah. I'm already bored with this. I got to go on.
Yeah.
So I actually had no intent to even do a podcast.
Yeah.
Like I had just kind of started my company, and like I moved to West Texas in 2012, and I feel like people are in and out of here so much. Like this isn't really essentially home for a lot of people. It's just kind of a place. And I always got the calls. Do you know horseshoers? Do you know vets? Do you know this? You know that? And then I was just like, I don't know. One day I was just like, I needed a change in my life, and I was tired of what I was doing. And I was like, how do you, like, what naturally comes to you that you can essentially monetize?
I love that.
Or that you can make, like, what is it that you're already doing that people are already coming to you? You know, because one thing I hate the most is when someone gets on that, like, I am not knocking it if you're doing it, you do you, but the pyramid thing and like, I'm selling this now or I'm selling that. And it's like, I don't want to lose my friends. And I never would ask my friends like, hey, give me money, or hey, give me this. But like, what naturally comes to you? And I was just thinking about it one day. And then I was like, well, West Texas is kind of looked over as far as like the equine world, but really there is so much money here. And there's a lot of big people that do, especially right now in the futurity world, that are coming out of here. And like the World Series roping finals, there's a lot coming from this area. And I was like, how can I make this like platform for West Texas? That's because you can always hear Stephenville, right? Because it's the cowboy capital of the world and stuff like that. But you don't, and you hear like a lot of the pros do have their own podcasts and things. But like, I do kind of find those hard to relate to on times because like, we don't live that life. You know, we all fantasize about it. I mean, majority of us, but we don't live that life. So I was like, how can I bring like local people in, but still bring like outside people to the community and like just talk and share people's stories or tips and tricks. Or I did a podcast with, it's called Cowboys Helping Cowboys. It's the organization for like the, gosh, don't get me lying to you, but I don't want to like say it wrong, but like if there's an injured cowboy, it's kind of like the Justice Crisis Fund, but like the guy lives in Lubbock. That's like the founder. And then the ball's in Fort Worth. And like, I got to do a podcast with him because he was in Midland one day. You know what I mean? Like, it's just so neat. And I saw that gap and I saw that need. And I was like, and the one thing is I can just talk. Like I don't really know any strangers. Like,
you
I'm
love
like,
it.
it's fine. Like we'll figure something to talk about. But I don't know. And that's kind of like, I didn't ever think of doing a podcast. It just, someone told me one time, was like, you should do a podcast. And I was like, no, like, I don't even, what do you even talk about? And they're like, just, you always go to someone and then before you know their life story, like talk about that on your podcast. And I was like, okay. So,
and you're great at it.
Thank you.
And like, that's what I love about, that's what I love about the word fearless. Right. And that's probably what gives me energy is seeing other people or hearing about how they were fearless on the journey, to whatever they're doing. You know, like, and what you're doing. Like, it's not, I'm sure it was easy, like in a way, because it's something you're already doing, but there's a lot of fear wrapped up into that, like the hows and the whats. And then you have all the people that are your friends that you're like, oh my God, like my friends are going to judge me. You know what I mean? Like, so you put yourself
whenever
out
you
there.
First said in the beginning and you were like, I just usually make fun of myself before anyone else can. That is my go-to. Like if I mess it up and I'm like, oh, look at me, like then you can't make fun of me and I'm good now, you know? And so I think you just have to go into it as like I've had a lot of people reach out to me and they're like, just how do you do it? And it's like, I just do it. You know, do I get nervous every time the mics come out? Yeah. You know, but you just do it. And I think it's just a really neat opportunity to be able to share too. And to make other people, like, especially like local, like athletes feel like it's cool for the kids. I did one with, there's a big junior rodeo association here. And I had my mic set up and I let all the kids come say,
I bet they loved that. And that would be fun to listen to. Like sometimes I listen to the Disney Channel podcast. I do. Like when I'm driving because it's so cute. And they interview these kids and it's adorable.
I'll have to send you. I have all of theirs.
I love that. And I'm like, somebody needs to do this in the rodeo world.
So I asked them their name, their horse's name, and their favorite event. And then like, it was so cute. Like, I mean, I had lead liners and then I had the 16 to 19 year olds, you know, and that was really fun. But just to see these kids light up and they were like, one little girl, her mom came to me. She said she's going to be on TV. And I was like, kind of, but no. Like, I do have a YouTube, but it's not like TV,
Yeah.
you know? But like for that little girl, that's what it was for her. She got to be on TV that day.
Yeah.
And it's just special.
Yeah.
So,
that is,
I don't know.
that's
I don't know
cool.
where it'll take me. I have no idea, but
Yeah.
it's fun. Thank you for listening to the War Pony podcast. If you have a story to tell or want to be a sponsored ad on our podcast, you can always contact us at Cassidy@warpony.co. That is CASSIDY@warpony.co. Or you can always find us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Warpony Co.